All right, hello and welcome. I'm back. I'm back. This time it's actually not tier links. It's something a little bit different. I'm just doing a little rank here because I watched a lot of movies in 2021 and I thought I'd talk about them. Uh, I saw 72 movies that came out in 2021 in 2021. So uh, I'm gonna list my top 15 in this list. And these movies, they don't have to be like technically released. Like a release date kind of happens like the first time it shows at a festival or something. So, it could have technically released in 2019, but it wasn't, in a theater that I could get to until like 2021. You see what I'm saying? Or I could have saw it on streaming since it came out on streaming in 2020. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's kind of the credentials I'm going here. First, I just want to kind of actually, I'm gonna save that for another video. I'm gonna save the bottom 15 for another video. So let's get started here with number 15. Number 15, we have Some Kind of Heaven. This is a documentary. It takes place um, a little bit in my backyard. It's in the Villages, Florida, which is this massive senior community, and it's kind of a surreal place. And I just thought, what's the guy Lance Oppenheim? Um, I feel like it could have gone farther. I feel like the little character studies that he was doing um, on the select few old people that he kind of cased throughout the documentary. I feel like it could have gone further, but I really like uh, it's a very unique, very surreal film, very depressing film. Um, but yeah, no. What's kind of crazy is that the theater that I work at, I'm not that far from the villages, and so um, I was actually expecting a lot more people from the villages to show up to watch this movie, but I think there was only a couple that showed up. But still kind of wild for there be a documentary about a place that's like right there, if you're not living in like a major city. But anywho, let's keep going. Next, we have a super weird one. This is from Abel Ferrara's one of more recent a director I've kind of delved into, and I'm a big fan. And this one released this year. Two actually came out this year. One was supposed to come out last year, but then there were some delays because of COVID. So there's two films of his released this year, and this one was, I mean, I'm gonna get to the other one, but this one was way under the radar. I actually saw this at a very shady theater. Um, it was a dollar theater, and they must have booked it because they thought it was some like, I don't know, military film because I mean, look at the cover of it. That's exactly what it looks like, but it's far from it. It's a very weird, very just kind of a mood piece in a way. It's very experimental as well, and I Ethan Hawke is I love it. You can tell he's just as naive as us, as the viewer, you know. Um, Experience experiencing this film for the first time. If you watch the film, you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, very interesting, very weird, and I didn't understand it at all, but I loved it. Um, 4 Hours Late period is something to treasure for sure, and I just hope he keeps pumping out shit like this. And speaking of, this movie was supposed to come out in 2020, but because of COVID, it, I think it got delayed. I don't really know the full story. All I know is that the release was pretty much botched because I remember there was a little bit of hype for this movie, but it was just very quietly released, and I saw it was on Amazon. I'm like, whoa, I can watch this. So it's very autobiographical in like an obituary kind of sense, and lots of visual metaphors. It's yeah, it's kind of a obituary on film before death, if that makes any sense. Next is a kind of esoteric pick. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but this is a film by made with one of my favorite bands, Fat White Family, and it's not very long, but it's also not really in the length of a short film, so it's kind of that weird in between. But I'm gonna count it anyway, and because this is kind of something, actually, I don't even think it can be accessed now. I have no idea how you would access this movie. But because of that, I'm just gonna throw in a little bonus movie here. I don't have a photo for it, but um, this was my surprise film of this year. You know, like something I wasn't really expecting, came out of nowhere. It didn't make this list. It didn't make top 15, but nevertheless, it was a favorite of mine this year. It's the rom-com called Together Together. I think you can find it on Hulu and maybe some other streaming services, but that is it's just a warm hug of a movie. It is if you ever feel like, you know, you need some hope for humanity and people, then give Together Together a try. Highly recommend. All right. Next we have Limbo. This was a film shown at my theater as well, and there's I don't know. I mean, there's nothing very special about this in terms of concept or filmmaking, but it's a very tight experience, and it says what it has to say. It's obviously personal, and I just thought it was a I thought it was a well done film. I'm not really gonna get a synopsis, but go out and see it if you can, or just watch it at home. It's probably more likely. But yeah, tight film. Next is the Souvenir Part Two. I actually watched the Souvenir Part One the night before I saw this, as it was playing at my theater. Um, and I think I like one and two just the same. And obviously, since this is up there in my top 15, I very much like these films. Honestly, I was not expecting to. I really had no interest in watching The Souvenir Part 1, but then I saw this was at my theater, so might as well. And they're actually very, very poignant reflections. I should say that. And the Souvenir Part 2 is a bit experimental, I guess you could say. It's a little out there, but again, like I said, I like them both the same. They're both very different from each other, but they're also very similar. They go great together though. So yeah. Next is the card counter from one of my favorite directors, Paul Schrader. Um, one of my favorite writers, I should say. And once again, we get the same character he's been writing for decades, um, just in a different context, in a different universe per se, I guess. Um, and this one is a little bit off kilter for Schrader, because the arc is far different than um, most of his other characters. It's still the same character, but it's like it starts kind of at the end of the arc in a way, and it kind of puts a spin on Schrader's formula that I thought was it was just kind of a fascinating watch because of that. If you're familiar with Schrader, and if you're not, highly recommend you do yourself the favor. Schrader is one of the best. Next is Annette. This is also from a director I'm a big fan of, Leos Carax. I'm definitely not pronouncing that right. Um, this one is actually probably one of my least favorites of his. I've seen every single one of his feature films, and this is actually kind of lower, but that should kind of give you an idea for how good his films are, considering that this is like at what, number seven or eight or something like that, in my top 15 of 2021. So yeah, this is a wild film. You'd expect nothing less from Leos Carax, but I felt that, especially in the latter half, it was a bit meandering. Um, there was just something a little bit off, um, that I was missing. Um, like there's a certain quality from most of his other films that I just didn't get here. And I'm acting like it was bad, but no, it's very very good. And just like Leos Carax, it's weird. Well, it really isn't that weird, but to the uh, uninitiated, I imagine it's a pretty odd film. Also, probably pretty autobiographical. Uh, if you're not making a film that's personal to you, then what's the point, right? Speaking of, next we have Benari. This is a film that I actually had way higher on my list, because I saw this at the very beginning of the year. Um, and again, this is an example of a film that a lot of people consider a 2020 film. But again, like it didn't come to my theater until early 2021, so I still consider it 2021 film. And but anyway, I had it higher on my list, but then I watched it again later in the year, and I didn't like it as much, but it's still a very very tight film. It's got a motif of urine. It's got biblical references left and right, and lots of subtle metaphors. And I just eat that shit up. I love that stuff. So this is a very interesting watch, and yeah, give it a shot. Next we have The Power of the Dog. This one you'll probably be hearing a lot in about 1 to 2 months. Uh, yeah, I mean, I was kind of blown away by this movie, because when I started it, it's it's a Western, but it just seemed really off for a Western. Like I knew it was by a Kiwi director. It was actually, I didn't know this, but it was actually until after the movie, and it made a lot of sense. Is that it was filmed in New Zealand, and it's supposed to be set in Montana, so it's a little bit of a stretch there. But yeah, it didn't feel like a Western, and so that's where the skepticism came in. But this film just kind of naturally becomes its own. It has its own identity. It's very unique identity, and you learn to love it. And and the ending to this film, like the more it goes on, the better it gets. And these characters, especially, are some of the best written characters. Um, probably, you know, are probably going to be some of the best written characters of this decade. I know this decade just started, but yeah, fascinating characters. Um, I have not seen a Jane Campion film, so this was a treat. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention that is Benedict Cumberbatch. That's his best performance. Like, I'm sorry, I've yet to see another performance that's better than this one. So next is The Killing of Two Lovers. This is a film that went way under the radar. It was booked at my theater, and I'm really glad I caught it because this is a gem, and it's a very simple film. It's very straightforward, but it's just so tight. It's it knows what it needs to do, and it gets it done. you know. And on top of that, the sound design here is it's sparse, but it's so effective. It is some of the um, most strategical and effective um, sound engineering and mixing uh, that I've seen from, you know, any recent film in a long time. So definitely check this out. I think it's on a bunch of streaming services because, I mean, like I said, this went under the radar, so you can probably find it pretty easy, and I highly recommend it. Next is Sweat. This one is another one that went under the radar, but it's totally makes sense. It was released by Mubi, um, which is a streaming service, a streaming service with not that much of a user base, but I think actually a lot of its user base is not American, but I could be wrong. But anyway, this is a Polish film, and it's about a fitness influencer um, who just it's a very slice of life kind of film, but it goes through some interesting an interesting series of events through the course of a couple days with this character, and I just find this film fascinating. I saw it twice, and the second time around it was even better. Um, just the it's very much a study of the time, you know. And I don't know, I really liked it, and I want to see more from this Magnus Van Horn guy. Next is Licorice Pizza. This is one that I just caught at the tail end of the year, just squeezed in. Um, and yeah, I mean this one for me lived up to the hype. I was kind of scared it wasn't, but it does. And this is one of Paul Thomas Anderson's best. It's Boogie Nights is my favorite, and this is up there. Like it's like right on the cusp. Like for me, it's that good. And I am a big, well, I wouldn't say big, but I'm a Haim fan. I like Haim, and so is my one of my buddies, and we went and saw this together. And yeah, I mean, Alana Haim just knocks it out of the park. Cooper Hoffman knocks it out of the park. These are both pretty much non-actors for the most part, and yeah, I mean, this is just great stuff. It's such a naturally progressing film, and it's you got some weird themes and ideas within it, and I just feel like it's just it feels so natural. It feels so organic. Um, yeah, great watch. Next is this was almost my favorite film of the year, but another one you'll see topped it off. This is a Swedish film about endlessness, is the name. And it's very much like a human condition type of movie where it shows you little slices of life of different people within. I I think it's just Stockholm. I think it only takes place in Stockholm. I could be wrong. And it goes between different time periods like modern day, World War II, and I don't know. I just found it just be a really tight, very unique film, and I haven't seen Roy Anderson's other most well-known movie, the one about the pigeon. I don't know the name of it, but he makes very similar films. But this is the only one I've seen from him, and I loved it. I would love to see more from him. Um, and now, numero uno, my favorite film of the year is dun dun dun, dun Titan. I'm probably not pronouncing that right either, but this is the Cannes winner, which because of that, instantly went in with skepticism, because as soon as I hear, a movie win some type of prestigious award, I just instantly am like, all right, what's the narrative here? What's the, what I'm saying? So I went in with skepticism, and I came out just with my mind blown. I mean, not in a sense that it was like, there was so much shock factor and there was so much. It was just an experience that made me like, uh, I don't know, like go to another place. And yeah, it did that, but that's not the only reason why. I've seen Cronenberg films, which there's a lot of similarities. I'm a huge fan of Claire Denis. Lots of slim similarities. So it's not like any of those influences and those concepts from those influences were a surprise to me. It's just this film is just so it it's impossible how it blends those two extremities together into a very just a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, uh, not visually, but emotionally and theme wise, like it's just it's it's beautiful. It's disturbing, but uh, it's hard to talk about this film because I don't know. I just loved it so much. This is a 10 out of 10 movie for me. This is the only 10 out of 10 movie from this year. Um, but yeah, that's my top 15. Thanks for tuning in. Long video as usual. All right, peace out, yo.